Hello, I'm Kirk Ray Smith, President and CEO of Hope Villages of America. And I'm so proud to be a part of such an incredible organization doing such amazing work and such an incredible community. To be able to provide services and programs for so many deserving individuals and families is truly an honor and a blessing. And I consider myself to be privileged to be here in front of you right now. So many of you know by now, we recently rebranded. And I want to share with you a little bit about the rationale, what sort of led up to that. But let me start with a little bit about our history. This organization was started in 1967. Well over 50 years ago, the concept of religious community services came about. And it was 15 churches and synagogues that came together and they had this idea. How can we, find one place, kind of a clearinghouse, to pool our resources together, to convene, to come together, to meet the needs of our community? And at one point, it grew to 60 different churches and synagogues and other ministries, and over 150 delegates that really made up this organization. So at our genesis, we were 100% volunteer-driven for many, many years. But think about this, 1967, that was the last year of all civil rights legislation being signed into law, making all men and women in this country, all American citizens, equal, and that's monumental. Also during that time, you have to understand that still segregation was still a very, very real issue in this community. When you start talking about Upper Pinellas, many of the cities and towns and municipalities here were what you call sundown towns, sundown areas. And what that simply meant, if you were a black person, you had to be out of the area by sundown, but yet RCS was created by a diverse group of people. In fact, one of the early meetings was facilitated by an African-American pastor. That's incredible. I mean, it's amazing. Every time I think about our history, it amazes me. Also during that time, listen, for you to be under 18 and pregnant, that was taboo, right? And so if a young girl found herself pregnant during that time, she couldn't get any government assistance around prenatal care to help care for that unborn child and herself. And it was a group of RCS people that went to Tallahassee and fought and lobbied for legislation to provide medical support, government support, so that young girls, young expectant mothers could get the prenatal care that they needed, that they deserved. And again, RCS was on the front lines. And so it's such an incredible organization that I'm proud to be a part of. And what an incredible heritage and incredible history that we're excited about each and every day. And as the years passed, the organization became more and more dependent on government support, less dependent on the support coming from local ministries. And by the time we got to around the mid-90s, it became apparent that the directionality as it relates to financial support would be public versus what was happening with the local ministries and churches. And so the delegation that was once around 150 individuals began to sort of dissipate. And so as a result, although we were Religious Community Services Incorporated, we went from 100% supported by local churches and ministries and synagogues down to around 2%. So as the years passed, and again, we were volunteer driven up until the early mid-90s, so there was no paid staff at that point until then. But at any rate, over the years, we discovered that the organization had operated, had some pretty tough financial times, and almost 3 times in our history, the organization almost completely shut down because of financial challenges, and the needs of the community were far greater than this organization's capacity. And by the grace of God, we were able to sustain, and so we've been doing that. And so in 2016, we started conversations about, well, what does it look like? What's the next step for this organization? So we put together a strategic plan to really address some of the issues that many nonprofits face. That the bottom line is well, we have to have a bottom line. We have to have a margin in order to be successful. You've heard me say it, if some of you have, over and over, no margin, no mission. So it's not about being driven by a bottom line or driven by a margin, but being conscious of the importance of having a bottom line, of having a margin, that we operate very much like a business, right? There are administrative and fiduciary responsibilities that we have. So myself and the board and our leadership team, we begin our conversations on what the next step looked like for this organization. So once we're able to overcome some of those obstacles and hurdles that were prevalent for so many years, the natural progression for us was to rebrand. I spent a lot of my time explaining to people. They'll say, well, religious community service, what is your religion? What do you guys believe? We say, well, we don't have a religion. We're all inclusive, and doesn't matter what you believe or what your background is or where you come from, your pedigree, persuasion, whatever it is. We want to support you. So we have no persuasion at RCS. And they said, well, if you're not religious, why are you religious community services? And then we sort of moved towards RCS Pinellas, right? Many of you heard that you saw that a lot more than religious community service spelled out. And so even then, folks would ask, well, what does RCS stand for? So there again, we have to explain what it stands for. And so where we found ourselves was spending way too much time trying to explain what the name meant or didn't mean, and not enough time talking about our mission. And so we said we want to flip that. We want to spend less time talking about our name and more time talking about our mission. If we were forced to choose a religion, well, our religion would be our mission. And I always question when you talk about religion anyway, if you have a religion that doesn't believe in helping the homeless, if you have a religion that doesn't believe in providing safety and security for the abused, if you have a religion that's not into addressing hunger and all the different crises that we face in our community, well, I would question your religion anyhow. But our religion is just that. Our religion is our mission. So when we thought about our new name, it took a while. Well, what name could we have that could properly articulate who we are and what we're about? When we looked at the plethora of services and programs that we provide, how multidimensional we were, we realized it was impossible. There was no name we can come up with that can properly articulate who we are. However, we've always had this belief within this organization that we're hope restoration specialists. Hope restoration specialists. Now, every person in this organization, every staff, every board member, every volunteer, we consider ourselves to be hope restoration specialists. What does that mean? Well, there are some people who once had hope and they forgot about it. It's our job to remind them. Still, there's others whose hope is shaky. They're going through a tough situation. They're not sure how to hope. And again, we remind them that no, hope is real. Hope can help bring things to fruition in your life. And there's others who have no hope at all, was never even familiar with hope. So we introduced them to hope. So we knew hope was critical. We also know that each and every time, it doesn't matter who you are, what you're going through, what your situation is. Collectively, as an organization, we take ownership of what you're going through. We're going to own it until it's solved. Your problem is our problem. Your issue is our issue. We adopt, we share your pain, because the organization is full of people that's been through many challenges in our own lives. And so we surround you like a village. It's our belief that as a village, we're going to come together and take ownership of whatever that issue is, and we're going to work with you until we come up with a solution. That's how committed we are. So we know that we're Hope Restoration Specialists. We operate like a village. We surround you. So Hope Villages of America was the most appropriate thing that we can come up with, addressing hunger, housing, and abuse. Now, people say, well, Kirk, Hope Villages of America, you sound global. We are global. However, we do DBA, we do business as Hope Villages of America, Pinellas County, or Hope Villages of America, whatever municipality or area we may be in at the time. So we're very, very committed to wherever community we might be in. We're dedicated, we're locked in. There's no question about that. So that's the rationale around the name change. The next question is, well, what are you going to do with this name change? How does this help you? Well, we think, one, that it will put us in a position to expand and grow the organization. We have a desire to grow and expand. We want to do more than what we're doing. Yeah, we're helping over 130,000 individuals. Yes, we have over 80 food banks and food pantries across Pinellas County. Yes, we have a shelter for DV survivors and their children. Yes, we have a shelter for families facing homelessness over at our Grace House. Yes, we have affordable housing communities. Yes, we provide energy assistance for those who are struggling. Yes, we provide rental assistance and a plethora of other things. We do that, but we realize that as much as we're doing is still not enough. The need continues to be on the rise, not only in this community, but throughout the state, throughout this country. And so we want to be in a position that we're nimble enough, that we're able to pivot when things happen. We think now that we have a name that's a little bit more general, right? It doesn't really make us myopic and limit our scope and our ability to provide services and programs. So we think with the name change, again, we can expand and we can grow. Again, we want to expand our footprint. We want to be in other communities. We want to grow our programs and services. We want to do more in this community. So really, the timing couldn't be better. That doesn't mean there aren't challenges, right? Anytime you rebrand, and most people, and generally speaking, we're not. When you start talking about change, we're not the most excited about that. I get that, but change is inevitable. Change is necessary. And if you're going to progress and evolve, change is a part of that process. But all of that being said, we have no desire to run away from our heritage. We're proud of it, as I mentioned. We have no desire to move away or any kind of way discredit or ignore the legacy left by so many to create this organization. We're more passionate, more driven than ever to do more for this community. And it's folks like you who are listening. There's no way we would be here without you. Listen, we're not out of the woods yet, but we can see the road from here. We're far better off than we were 4 years ago, to be quite honest. But we have a long way to go. With your support, we think we can get there. And I'll finish with this. And this is our appeal. And this is what we need from each and every person under the sound of my voice and who's watching this video now. One, listen, we need advocacy. We need people talking about Hope Villages of America. And hopefully videos like this, information on our website, opportunities we have to come before you and talk about our organization, help you in that, to articulate who we are. We need advocates each and every day to talk about this organization. And again, listen, we're no different from any other nonprofit or charitable organization. The greatest existential threat to all of us is obscurity, people not knowing who we are, much less our impact. The second thing we need volunteers. Volunteerism is critical to our survival. It's germane. Without volunteers, we would not be here. Why? Because, listen, we depend on over 2,500 volunteers each and every year to make this organization happen. That saves us thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars and millions over the years that we don't have to cover in salaries. As a result, 85 to 90 cents of every dollar that's donated to us goes back to our mission because we are a volunteer-driven organization. We need volunteers, right? And lastly, we need financial support. As I mentioned before, no margin, no mission. This organization does not happen without finances. Doesn't matter how great your mission is or your vision or your ideas. If you don't have the financial resources, it won't happen. And again, we couldn't do it without financial support. So we need advocacy. So when we talk about advocacy, we're talking about time. Take time to talk about us, learn about us, share about us. Secondly, we need volunteers. We're talking about talent. We know you're good at something. Can you help us out? Can you volunteer at our warehouse, at our food bank? Can you volunteer at one of the many college campuses that we have food pantries on at this time? Can you volunteer there? Right? So when we talk about volunteerism, we're talking about talent. And then lastly, we're talking about financial support. We're talking about treasure. So we need your treasure to help us take the next step and be here for another 50 years doing incredible work in this community. So time, talent, and treasure is what we need. That is our appeal 365. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching it. Thank you for advocating. Thank you for volunteering. And thank you for supporting us financially. God bless.